Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is the best Star Wars game I have ever played. That's it. That's the headline in my review. That's all you really need to know. I got to play it a couple days early, and I didn't plan on beating it in only 2 days, but it pulled me in and didn't let go. If all you're looking for is my recommendation, you have it. Try not to get spoiled because leaks are out there. Just go enjoy this story for yourself. But if you want to learn more, I'll tell you why I feel this way and try to answer some of the questions people have been asking about the game. Today I'll be keeping things spoiler-free, but I will do a story spoiler review probably next week once people have had a chance to play for themselves. This is all my gameplay that I recorded, but I promise I won't go too far in the game and there won't be any cutscenes or anything like that. I want to give some background on my gaming preferences because obviously that plays a huge role in my enjoyment of this game, and I just don't talk about gaming all that much on this channel. I'm not overly picky. I like puzzle games, FPS games, platformers, pretty much anything. But all of my favorite games are third-person action adventures with great stories. I love The Last of Us, the Uncharted series, and last year Spider-Man really hooked me. Fallen Order is exactly the kind of game that I wanted it to be. There is a lot of Uncharted influence in there, but wrapped up in a Star Wars package with some Indiana Jones elements thrown in for good measure. Exploring temples, solving puzzles, satisfying combat, and truly a killer story with some wonderful new characters. No joke, this is one of my favorite stories of the new canon. But I think it's important that you know the types of games I enjoy, because if you're more of a first-person shooter gamer, your mileage may vary. Or maybe you're more into RPGs, and Knights of the Old Republic will always be your gold standard, which is fair, it also has a great story. My point is to keep in mind that third-person action-adventure games are my jam. I do want to address the EA elephant in the room because I've had so many people tell me they want to be excited for Fallen Order, but they don't trust EA. We all remember the Battlefront 2 launch. There are no loot boxes or microtransactions in this game. The only thing close to that I could see were additional cosmetic items if you pre-order. But let's move on to some basic questions people have been asking, like, how long is it? I played for about 19 hours and ended with a 90% completion. I did go out of my way a handful of times to explore and find collectibles, but for the most part, I think that I stuck to the story. But if you take off that exploration and remove the time I got really stubborn about beating one difficult enemy, if you stick to the story, I still think it would take a good 16 hours, which is longer than the Uncharted games and The Last of Us and about the same length as Spider-Man. I'm interested to see how long it'll take me to 100% it, which I want to do. I could see it being another 4 or 5 hours. There are technically 7 planets in the game if you include the tutorial stage of Bracca, but the bulk of the story is centered on 4 worlds: Bogano, Zepho, Kashyyyk, and Dathomir. After getting the hands-on experience back in October, I will say that I thought the scope of the game would be a little larger. The skill tree, for example, isn't as big as I thought it was. It kinda gives this sense of going on forever, but you can see all of it from the start. But having finished the game, I am fully satisfied by its length, the number of planets, and so on. I didn't even unlock all the abilities in the tree. I already mentioned the story, but I have to gush over it some more. It feels so much like a Star Wars story. This isn't just some fluffy package for lightsaber combat. The characters are great. Cal is relatable, and he learns real, powerful lessons about living with and getting over past trauma. The developers have said this game is about becoming a Jedi, but Cal's story is also about what it means to be a Jedi. All of the supporting characters are just as good. I started to make a list of my favorite characters in the game, and I can't because almost all of them stand out. BD1 is a treasure, of course, but everyone already knows that. The Night Sister probably surprised me the most, and by the way, it's super cool to see Dathomir and plenty of other Star Wars things that were first realized in comics or animated properties, but now we get to see them in a more realistic form. But Grease, Seer, and even the Second Sister had compelling stories of their own. They all have very emotional moments with Cal, and I was thrilled at the level of depth the story had. We're at this interesting point in the galaxy where more than one of these characters grew up after having lost everything. They're dealing with trauma and guilt and this struggle of finding out who you are when so many of your choices have been taken from you. Do you turn to anger over the past, or do you learn and grow from it? The story builds for the first half or so of the game, and then it just doesn't let up. I can count 6 oh shit moments off the top of my head, and I'm probably missing some. Narrative lead Aaron Contreras and his team of writers deserve a ton of credit for going above and beyond. Let them write Star Wars games for as long as they want. I think this is a movie caliber story being told, and I haven't even mentioned the acting or the music, which I thought were superb all around. Like I said, this isn't just meaningless Star Wars rapping for cool gameplay mechanics, it's so much more. All that said about the story, the gameplay is still really fun. Something I've said before about platformers is that I think the mark of a good one is seeing how something is possible, it's just difficult to do. That is very true of the combat. You could take on any enemy in the game right off the bat if you were good enough. It's all possible, but you need to practice to improve your skills. It's got this really cool learning curve where at the start you're struggling to defend yourself against rats and bugs, but by the end you've been fighting for so long you feel like you can take on the whole empire yourself, but with more success than Dak. What's more is that the combat is very Jedi-like. I found that the more worked up and tense I got, the worse I was doing. I'd panic and just start spamming buttons, and that simply will not work. Like a Jedi uses the Force, you're going to have more success by being patient with every fight and staying calm. I mentioned earlier that I got stuck stubbornly fighting this one enemy over and over because I knew I could beat it and I was getting more and more frustrated that it was killing me, but it really did teach me to just chill out and think my way through the fight. Boss fights still get really intense, so it's hard to keep your cool all the time, but that's the fun of it. I played the game on normal difficulty and thought it was well balanced. I never felt like something was impossible, but I also died a lot. One little misstep, even in a normal enemy encounter, and you can find yourself getting wrecked. On a less technical, just cool factor level, combat is satisfying. There are a ton of different force powers you can use that it never really feels stale. I think I said I was getting a little bored with combat during the hands-on event in October. I did not feel that at all in my full playthrough. You open up abilities like push or pull or lightsaber throw with enough frequency that something new is constantly being added to your repertoire that you can't wait to try out. It's rare, but oh man, when you get through an encounter with a group of enemies without taking a scratch, it feels so good. You feel like a Jedi. I don't know how to say it any better. The game is a little more linear than I was expecting. I figured the story would find itself in one set conclusion, but I thought maybe there would be more branching paths along the way. You can go to any planet you want at almost any time, but you pretty much always have one goal. Sure, you can go to Dathomir almost from the start, but you're doing so more for the collectibles and upgrades, not so much to progress the story. But that didn't take away from my experience at all, and the collectibles are surprisingly fun. I'm normally not someone who 100%s a game, but I do want to do that with Fallen Order. What's funny is the collectibles are pretty much just cosmetic. They don't change the game much, which again, I tend to not care about character customization. I never really changed Cal's outfit or BD1's color scheme because I preferred the originals. But I did customize my lightsaber every chance I got. You can change the color, emitter, switch, sleeve, and material, and in a really nice touch, they have all of the pieces available at Galaxy's Edge. So if you create a lightsaber you really like in the game, you can then go to Galaxy's Edge and make that exact lightsaber. Or if you've already gone, you can make the lightsaber you built for real, which is what I did. I was surprised at how into that side of the game I got, and how excited I was every time I found a new crate, even though it doesn't affect the story at all. Outside of cosmetics, you can use BD1 to scan lore about new and familiar planets on their wildlife, so of course I really loved that, learning new trivia. And some of the new lore in the game is significant. Again, try to avoid leaks, I think it's worth seeing all of this stuff firsthand. They also make collecting everything pretty user-friendly. You can check the maps of every planet from your ship and see if you've unlocked any new areas from there. You can also see how many chests and secrets you have left to find in each individual area of a planet, so they don't expect you to wander around aimlessly hoping to find the last few things. Newly opened areas are clearly marked in green, and areas you can't yet reach show up in red. Now, I wouldn't say the game is perfect. I did have a couple issues, but in the grand scheme of things, they're pretty nitpicky. I think some of the levels could use some stronger signposting. I found myself getting lost here and there, not sure of where to go, but the map is pretty helpful in that regard. I did experience a handful of glitches throughout, but only one time did it fully break the game and make me restart. I think that would have been easily solved by having an option in the menu to respawn at your last save point. I would have used that feature more than once, even without getting stuck. I also wish there were a stealth element of the gameplay. Something I love about Uncharted and The Last of Us is your ability to avoid big fights if you're good at silently taking enemies down. I wish you could quietly sneak up on stormtroopers and whittle them down like that, but your only real option is to loudly start a fight every time. But if you do have a chance to sneak up on a group of stormtroopers, just listen to their dialogue for a bit. There are some genuine laugh out loud moments when they're just talking, and even when you're fighting them. But again, those are all just nitpicks I'm thinking of upon reflection. When I beat the game, I had nothing but enthusiasm and excitement. Fallen Order now sits among The Last of Us and Uncharted as one of my favorite games. It feels like it was tailor-made for me. I hope a lot of people have as much fun with it as I did. It's a perfect combination of character, story, and gameplay, all fitting perfectly into the Star Wars universe. If you just want a fun action game, you'll get it. If you just want a good, meaningful Star Wars story, you'll get that too. I just beat the thing and I want to play it again, and I'll probably stream it, so keep an eye out for that. And also keep an eye out for my spoiler review about the story sometime next week. I'd love to hear what you think of the game as you get to play it, so let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.